And hello, Solaris. How are you?
I'm good, Robin. How are you doing?
Good, good. Sometimes I
Good.
feel like I'm running a race.
Well, I understand that, huh?
Yeah, it's so much information to try to get in. And I can only imagine what your weekend was like. Gosh.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Actually, it was probably one of the best summits we've ever done so far.
Oh, it's
Everything, yeah, it was just wonderful. We had some excellent expert presenters there, and just incredible. Really was. And it's a shame that we didn't get a larger audience. We had a good audience, don't get me wrong. We had a pretty good sized audience, but we really, when I think about all the people that go and attend rock concerts and all this garbage, and this is so critical that people understand this type of technology. And it's just like, yeah, it's annoying to me when I think about it, actually.
well, that's why you're on the air now. That's why you
Yeah.
have your shows. I didn't have the name of your show when I was getting out the announcements, the one
Okay.
that appears on Dark Matter.
Oh, it's hyperspace.
Thank you. My apologies that it wasn't included.
That's all right.
So it's just wonderful that there are more ways for people to hear your important information.
Well, thank you.
So why don't we start with a little bit about you and what your presentation was?
Okay. Well, I'm sure people are familiar with me by now, but if you're not, I'm a published author, clairvoyant remote viewer, and I was interfaced with a covert technology back in 2004, which I decoded and have written several books about. And it's pertaining to synthetic telepathy and psychotronic driving. And it's merged with a very hardcore, I would say a very, very intense militarized program the more I look into this. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. I have books out available on the technology, and my website's Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. And my presentation was about synthetic telepathy, mind mapping the whole design, how they mind map you on a technological level, assessment of a target, which what they call threat assessment levels. So I went through that, breaking free from the programming, which is it's really huge that people break free from this garbage,
Yeah.
free will, universal law. Harnessing one's life force and altering the game. These are topics that I covered while I was there. Soundings and tonals, how frequency shifts the dynamic of the program. So things like that I talked about. I gave about it was a little over an hour presentation, and it was very well received. Very,
But
very well received.
but Solaris, the big question is there are so many people out there, and I know at different conferences where I've been speaking or Richard's been speaking, people who have come to me and told me they have Morgellons or they
Mm-hmm.
are being electronically harassed and they don't know what to do, and everybody tells them that they're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a stumbling block, and it's used, of course, to marginalize people and keep all these dirty dealings, out of sight and out of the
Mm-hmm.
minds of the mainstream.
Right.
how do
Yeah.
we how do we help these people? They have to
Yeah.
know you're out there, but we need to have more of a presence so people don't feel that they're in it all alone.
Well, I agree. Well, there's freedom from covert harassment, as you're aware of, I'm sure.
Right.
And of course, they are really there to help if people are getting hit really hard with this type of psychotronic program or electronic harassment, they can contact them, and they'll at least be documenting the information, and they'll be helping them along. If they're reaching points where they want to just commit suicide, those people are there for counseling. So that's one avenue. Another avenue is to contact Dr. John Hall, who was doing a lot of research. He was there as one of the expert presenters and was talking about what he's been up to with this technology and trying to get people to listen. And I'll tell you what, those guys have their necks on the line, those two doctors. We've got Dr. John Hall, we've got Dr. Robert Duncan, who are literally putting their necks out because they do. I mean, you know how doctors are received in mainstream society. And if you start going and bucking against the lies, you become targeted. So those guys, I will give them a lot of credit for coming forward. They did fabulous presentations. And, they were talking about the technology, and I can go into that later too. Because I'll
Sure.
tell you what, the more you know about this technology, the more pissed off, I mean, literally pissed off you're going to be because it's real. It's destroying the brain. It's destroying the mind. It's creating pseudo symptoms of schizophrenic behavior. And if they were to do an EEG on someone who was actually targeted with this technology, it would mirror schizophrenic behavioral patterns. That's how hardcore this crap is. And I'll tell you, it's infuriating. I don't know. I get really fired up when I think about it because I went through hell and back exposing the misuse of this technology. And shame on this freaking government that's lying, that's deploying this technology onto targets. And, some people will say, well, it's random. It's a random selection. BS. I'm not buying that at all. I've done enough assessment on people who have contacted me for 10 years. And I'm telling you, they're going after bloodlines. They're going after psychic abilities. It depends on what they're wanting to recruit you for. And it adds right up. So the more I know about this, the more I just want to sue the entire government. I want to sue DARPA. I want to sue everybody, because how dare they subject everybody to this torturous avenue and then pretend it doesn't exist. And if that's not bad enough, they try to put people in mental wards.
Yes.
Well,
Oh,
don't get me started, Robin. I'm sorry, but you know what?
you've got to get started, Solaris, because there's so many that need your voice out there to give them the credibility instead of having them subjected to ridicule by their so-called friends and family.
Oh,
and
absolutely. It's education, Robin. That's the biggest thing. They
Yes.
need to be educated. The parents, everybody. You need to understand it's a technological interface, what they're doing. And they even described it when Dr. Hall, or actually it wasn't Dr. Hall, it was Dr. Robert Duncan, was describing the EEGs. And of course, you all know the EEGs measure brainwave signals. Well, the EEG heterodyning is a mixing of the minds, and that's what they're using. They're mixing two signals. They're encrypting signals. They're mixing two signals. So it's almost like you have two brains when they use this. They also do an EEG cloning, and that's turning a target into a human robot, which is what they try to do with me, using to interrogate, spy, kill, or disable a target. And most of the time, these covert areas are collecting data to make the weapon system better and more effective. And they've perfected this technology, Robin. They perfected it.
No, I'm curious. At first, I'll get to my question, but I want to state that, I'm so familiar with doctors being harassed. And of course, because I'm a licensed healthcare practitioner, I have to be very careful about my language and my recommendations. Sure. Many people don't understand that. But with Lyme disease, there are doctors who lost their licenses because they championed the proper treatments for their patients. Mm-hmm. Just recently with the Gulf disaster, there were doctors throughout the Gulf Coast region that wanted to do testing for volatile organic chemicals in the blood of people in the area. But if that were to happen, then there could be lawsuits, and they were not allowed to do it. Mm-hmm. So, people need to know that the fix is in. What you were just saying before struck something with me about being bombarded with different signals at the same time. Mm-hmm. Doesn't that type of an attack cause dissociative behavior and perhaps the formation of multiple personalities?
Yep, that's exactly what they're doing. They're deliberately running a program which is designed to create multiple personality disorder. Yes, they are. And they're doing it deliberate. Now, a lot of the time they'll run those personalities insofar as an alter, and they'll try to use it for their own agenda, like a Manchurian candidate or something like that, or maybe even part of their personnel. So yes, they are. They're running multiple programs for multiple personality design. Yes, and it's what they call time slicing. It's two software programs that are running on one computer, from what I understand, from what they were talking about at the summit.
Gosh, I mean, I know there's so much in mind control and brain, what can we say? Brain structuring that came out of the Monroe Institute.
Oh gosh, they're just, you know what? The more I look at this, the more insidious it is. And you realize, Robin, this has been going on for such a long time. I mean, we're talking about the primordial days of, the MK Ultra, which was more hardcore and torturing people. And now they've designed it to such an advanced form where you're just deploying it through computers and interface and satellites. And it's just amazing.
Well, remember, I had to get in touch with you. Here I am, all excited and worked up, watching a program called, Believe, and it talks about a little girl who's got amazing special powers. And lo and behold, being familiar, having spoken with you and interviewed you in the past and heard your other presentations, Solaris, and you're talking about how they can target you remotely from your individualized signature. Mm-hmm. Here they're showing on this mainstream primetime television program. Oh yes, and we will use our technology that will pick her up and identify where she is on our GPS when she uses her special abilities.
Well, yeah, it's really pathetic, and they're using it almost tongue-in-cheek right now, and kind of educating the masses. But at the same time, they're flaunting it like, you can't touch us. There's nothing you can do about it. We've got all these people under our control. We've got people tagged. And by the way, I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that they can cause remote heart attacks and mind aneurysms remotely. Definitely. This is something, once you're plugged in electronically, they can take you out. So people who die mysteriously and they say, oh, it's just a heart attack, think again. This is the most insidious weapon of destruction I've ever in my life experienced. And, the more I think about it, the more I just become so livid. How dare they try to screw with the beautiful mind? How dare they? Yeah. That's all I can say.
I agree with you. And something to keep in mind, there are many out there doing the dirty work for these different government agencies. And one of the techniques that they use, because not everyone is trained or has the psychic abilities to remotely access and disrupt somebody's body functions,
Mm-hmm.
but they can take a microwave oven that's in most hotel rooms and place it next to the wall where the person is on the other side and set it to keep exposing them to that microwave range, which will cause a heart attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of that also. Yeah.
Yeah, and when, you have to be able to roll out of the field, but that covers quite a broad field. There are just so many things, and that's the primitive stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah, that's just, they don't even use that anymore unless it's somebody, if it's like a gang stalking, like a gaslighting in your local neighborhood, then some idiot might try something low order like that. But no, we're talking hardcore technology here. We're not talking little microwaves at all. Now, this stuff is perfected. It's a militarized program that's perfected. It's so perfected that it's hard to detect. It's hard to trick. I mean, you can't deceive. I mean, literally, actually, you can deceive people. Like if you're being assessed for something, they won't be able to read it. They won't be able to read the signal.
Wow.
That's how good it is. That's how good mine is, Robin.
Yeah.
I've got a really good signal, real good one. It's been integrated in, and I'll tell you what. The more I think about it, the more I just get livid because I actually have like two brains in my head right now. Incredible. If I were to describe it, one's artificial intelligence and one is me. And it's one band. It's like one frequency. And if you guys try to discount any of this, go knock yourselves out. Talk to Robert Duncan about it. We discussed this entire situation over the weekend. And once again, while people were out in La La Land watching crap TV and not paying attention, there's a very credible conference going on where we're talking about technology that's being deployed, destroying lives across the globe, and mainly in the United States, I might add, where people's lives are literally being destroyed.
Yeah, and it's not just in the United States, because one of the team members for Event Horizons is Melanie Britchen, and Melanie is in Brussels, and she has been the subject of these attacks, and they tried to pick her up to have her admitted to a hospital forcibly, and lo and behold, because Melanie has and I think this is part of why she's come under so much attack, because she has the ability to have testing done for people, which is far from what they want out there, any kind of confirmation, that I think this is why she was singled out. But that testing, which had been shared with her primary care physician, was what made them release her instantly, because her doctor said, no, this woman is not crazy. This is real, and it is going on with her, and she has had testing that proves it. So we need this for more people, because these abuses are way too common.
Oh, absolutely. And what you need are people who are qualified and credible to do the testing as well, like Dr. John Hall comes to mind, because you don't want some goof, over there in the psychological departments, trying to play the game, because if they were to use an EEG on a lot of these targeted individuals, it will show up as a possible schizophrenic pattern on their brainwaves. Well, right. It mirrors that. It's designed to do that. It's designed to trick people. That's exactly what they're going for. So literally, but I'll tell you, people who have schizophrenic disorder, usually that starts when they're younger. It doesn't start when you turn 40 or older. So that's one of the giveaways right there. When these people in their late 30s and early 40s all of a sudden start becoming targets, and all of a sudden there's this communication system that they have access to, and it's not like voices in the head. And I never call it voices in the head. It's a communication system. It's a setup, and it's a technological interface from an exterior source interface with the brainwave and the mind. So yeah, you guys. I hope everybody's getting educated today, because I'll tell you what, I'm losing patience with people trying to pretend it doesn't. It's some sort of a brain disorder. Yeah, it's a brain disorder, right?
Well, we're going to wake them up, Solaris.
Okay.
You do a great job of that. Stay with us, people. Right. We will be right back. And we are back. A big thank you to you, our audience, for choosing to spend your time here with us at What They Don't Want You to Know on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I'm your host, Dr. Robin Falkov, and with me is my friend and colleague, Solaris BlueRaven. Be sure to catch her shows on Revolution Radio and on the Dark Matter Network. Look for Hyperspace. Did I get it right, Solaris?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Oh, hooray. I never know. You know what it's like on break when you're zipping through 100 different things.
Oh, yeah.
And with the last mention about schizophrenia, I have to say, there was a book that I came across. It was an old book written by Dr. Harvey Ross and Alan Cott, and they were members of orthomed.org. And that is an organization, I believe Linus Pauling was a co-founder. We had Albert Szent-Györgyi. He was the man who discovered vitamin C, the components and reactions of the citrus cycle as well. And I mean, we all know about the amazing work of Linus Pauling, but they formed this group, orthomed.org. And back in the 70s, they wrote this book showing how responsive schizophrenia was to nutritional supplementation of vitamin C and niacin, that could get a person back in balance. So, isn't it interesting? I'm sure you haven't heard about it.
No, and it's well, that's one thing if they have regular schizophrenia, and if that's one thing, and that's probably something that would help them. But if they're people who have been targeted with this type of interface, which is based on a simulation of that kind of a brain function, that's another animal altogether.
Oh gosh,
and that's a rewiring to the brain from an external signal. And it's, well, like I sasaid before, they call it heterodyning to some extent. And it's bad news. It's bad news.
Oh, it's an assault. It's an actual attack.
This is not one of those non-lethal weapons, by the way. You know, the type of trauma that people endure during these programs is inexcusable. I mean, I'm sure, Robin, you've heard me talk about what happened to me in the past and how they've, literally attacked me inside and out with this technology. You know, I'm really nervous to think what my brain looks like these days because of all the trauma it's gone through. And even though I can function, I mean, you've heard stories about people having brain injuries and that speak just fine, right? So.
Well, and there are stories about people who, on autopsy, they find that there are a lot of empty spaces, not being funny here, but that, there's a lot of empty space inside the head where there would be what is thought to, or known as a normal sized brain. And these people were brilliant and they functioned outstandingly in society. So. Right. Yep. It undermines the fact that they truly have no idea what they're doing.
No, it's all about militarizing something and creating all these multiple personalities for their own agenda. They use it for so many different things. I mean, you can use it for remote viewing. You can use it for spying. I mean, spybird technology is really what it's about, because when you incorporate these people or targets into the program, if they pass and they want you in, then you can use it for anything. And you have group handlers. I think you can have 2 to 4 group handlers on some of these inductions that are taking place. So a lot of people who say it's just a computer they're just listening to, no, a lot of the time it's a real handler. Like I've mentioned before with my experience, I had a live handler in real time. And had he been a real man, he would have testified with me instead of being the jackass he was. But I will tell you point blank that these targets are not delusional in any way, shape, and or form. They are literally being assaulted by a tactical hardware that's being deployed by our own government. And it's a black technology, and it's perfected. It's just plain perfected.
Sure, and so many of us have heard descriptions of Project Bluebeam, the ability with technology to create an experience, to use holograms, different types of holographic imagery to make a religious experience or whatever it is. Those things are possible. And when you think of the direct interface with somebody's brain, oh my God.
Oh, it's unlimited. Yeah, Robin. Yeah. And the funny thing is now, a lot of people, we discussed this at the summit also because there were a lot of speakers there. Melinda Leslie was there talking about her MyLab experiences. And I had some imagery with MyLabs when I was inducted, but I'm well aware of what the technology is about. So I think now they're all starting to understand that their MyLab experiences are based on psychotronically driven programs, and that it's not necessarily that they were physically there, perhaps. I think a lot of the time it was all about psychotronic programming and this type of deployment of tactical hardware that they're just now getting familiar with. So next time people think they're being abducted or inducted by extraterrestrials, think again. It's probably your friendly old government agent.
Oh gosh, yes, and that is so apparent. At least it seemed the logical assumption to put together for myself, that because there were conflicting reports. And, when you've interviewed people, and I've worked with a couple of patients back in Florida, it just seems that the wall they're hitting is because they can't question things. They have those blocks that have been implanted in their brains, and it's way too easy to give them a created memory that some alien ship abducted you. Right. So if you could clarify for the audience, Solaris, please, MyLabs, what specifically does that refer to?
It's a military abduction. What it references is people who are being taken, have had experiences where they're being pulled into what they feel like is an extraterrestrial experience, when in fact it's usually an underground military abduction taking place by our own military. So, and the military also has access to this technology. So you're dealing with underground military with deployment of this type of psychotronic hardware, which screws with people's brainwave patterns. And a lot of the time they'll do it just to test out the equipment. I mean, they do it a lot to test it
Wow.
out. And then a lot of the time they're wanting it for recruitment purposes and seeing how the person progresses. Just like when you tag an animal and then you go back and check it out, 7 years later to see if it's still around. It's almost similar. I hate to say it, but they treat you like a, just a tagged unit.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's how most of the conscious beings on this planet are looked at, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because the more I look at this whole scenario, the more I look at everything on the world today, the more I realize how distorted it is and how corrupt it is. And that's why we feel like we can't win, is because you're dealing with criminals in the illusion of power. You're dealing with lawlessness out of laws that are, these laws that they're creating are not even valid. I mean, so we're dealing with a distortion to begin with. So how do you move through the distortion is really the game. And I think a lot of it is exposing the hell out of it and confronting it and taking it down. Now, this type of technology is not acceptable in any form or design, which means they should disable it. They should dismantle it. And the people that have been targeted or attacked with it, I mean, in a real nice, happy world, they should all be compensated for damages.
Oh my gosh, most definitely. I agree absolutely with what you've just stated.
Yeah.
And these are violations and abuses. And the reason they've gotten away with it for so long is because people were afraid to come out and say anything. Because just as I experienced with the patient, when we would try to get to the point where she would be healing, everything would be in balance, and exercise programs, eating properly. And this was a couple that were, removed together, brought somewhere for experimentation. You know, they would have matching injection sites and bruising. But when she started getting healthy, she got sick. Immediately, the same exact presentation over and over. And I finally said, you need a therapist that is really skilled, who can take you through all these layers that have been imprinted and placed in your brain.
Yeah, and also they need to disable the transmission. So that's the biggest problem, is that it's one thing to be inducted and have an experience, and then you can move on from that because you're not being traumatized. But what they're doing is brain entrainment with this. So what they're using, and sometimes it's dialogue, sometimes it's not, Robin. So sometimes these people will get their brains entrained with the communication system or with this agenda, and that's where you get all these psychotic breaks with these people acting up. So literally that needs to be dealt with. That needs to be blocked, and that needs to be disabled without a doubt. I'm going after that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not kidding. I've had it, and I am definitely looking into all avenues to disable this crap from anybody. This is inexcusable. And you know what the funny thing is? We have scientists out there who could step up and step forward and do it in a heartbeat, and they're not willing to because a lot of them are compromised.
Oh, or they'll lose their funding, their grants. Right. It all goes poof.
Yeah.
So
in the meantime, let everybody suffer. They'll let people lose their jobs because they're being harassed to such an extent with the psychotronics they can't function from day to day, and let people think they're crazy and let them get taken away while the cops laugh it off. Well, this is inexcusable. I'm telling you point blank. I'm not putting up with it, and that's why I was at the Super Soldier Summit, which is really, the technology itself is used for recruitment of super soldiers. Absolutely, it is, because once you learn the remote viewing, I mean, there's nothing you can't do when you're wired the right way with the technology. However, who wants to be part of this crap?
Oh, and what's the other side of that double-edged sword? You're wired, which means you're remotely controlled, and if they want to deactivate you, as in kill you, it's a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah. I know damn well that I still have anomaly signals, and I don't like the fact that I have those, because if they want to take me down, they'll take me down. But I find it so strong. I mean, I fought it so hard over the years that I think that it's not as strong as it probably needs to be to take me out. I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, and you guys can keep record of this, and I've said it before, and it's actually formalized. If anything happens to me, they're responsible, because I know they'll take me out and they'll murder me. And that's done remotely, so it'll look like an accident anyway. And they've done that with other people, by the way. I've counseled quite a few people who have been taken out by these programs. This is no joke. This is just serious.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it just needs more and more coverage. And I'm just looking at the way they're stigmatizing our veterans and trying to make them appear to all be incompetent because they've been traumatized by what they had to do and be in these foreign countries where they were hated and not wanted. So it's understandable, but this has got to be cleared up. And I mean, many of the things that they have been sent forth to do are just so horrific that nobody in their right mind could do it unless they were programmed.
Exactly. Yeah, they get desensitized. It's that brain entrainment thing where they get so programmed into what they want them to hear, see, and feel. And also they can remotely control the body. So don't forget that. So if you don't comply, like if you try to fight them, they'll try to take you down and torture you physically remotely. And they can do that very well. They can also control your hands and your feet if you don't take that power back. I took mine back early on, but they tried to control the hell out of me back in 2004. I'll tell you, it's a monster technology. It's so wrong. It's just so plain wrong.
So what can you share about blocking those signals, interfering with that connection?
Well, a lot of the time, I mean, it depends on how hardwired people are into the program. But for myself, I mean, I broke orbit with it a lot just by consciousness, just by my will alone, by some form of radionics I used to do when I was on Maui. And also, I worked with Tesla coils to help broadcast and detoxify me at the cellular level. So I've been working on that over the years, and I think my signals have kind of gotten disrupted a lot because I've been overriding the technology with my own mind. I know that sounds kind of strange, but I literally have been focused, like the Zen masters do, of overriding it and working with my mind, not the artificial intelligence, and just rerouting and reprogramming. But I do understand how they're doing it, and I do understand there are blockers that can be put up, but I haven't gotten to that avenue insofar as I'll need to work with some other scientists for that. But I'm slowly getting there. And when I do, game over. I'm gonna sell the hell out of that stuff, and not even sell it, probably just give it away, because I really think it's important that people focus on something to block this attack permanently. Yeah. I'm not talking about cutesy little Mylar blankets. Those don't work. I'm talking about hardcore stuff. You know, you're dealing with the supercomputer mind, which is the best kind of computer you can have, versus their programs, which is very compatible with the mind. I hate to say it, but the technology it blends very well. Obviously, it works. So we have to find a way to create another firewall within ourselves so that these guys can't sit there and hijack a target, which is what they're doing, by the way.
Yeah, it's just so horrific. I mean, the ongoing torture and the lies to cover it all up.
Yeah, I think that's what's most disturbing is how you have these smirking officials out there and people, even in the police departments. And, you know, these guys should know better than when they see somebody who they say is, oh, this person's talking to themselves. You know what? Do the math. You know, try to educate yourselves. Read a freaking book on covert technology for change, and stop trying to, you know, take people to jail that don't belong in jail. That's my big comment of the day, because I get tired of that. I see so many people that I know darn well are being targeted that get looked at like they're just plain crazy when in fact they're not at all. So we need people to stand up for that. We need people to stand up and say, look, this is the technology. Hands off, everybody. Leave them alone. If anything, they need to be compensated.
Yes, definitely. Well, we look at what happened with the military shooter at the boatyard. Was that the DC boatyard or?
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, he called into freedom from covert harassment. They talked about that at the summit.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that, because what did he carve into the stock of his rifle? You know, this is my electromagnetic, my EMP weapon. That how they're controlling him.
Right. Yeah, he is actually telling people, hidden in plain sight, expressing what's happening, telling he's being tortured, trying to get anybody to pay attention. Instead, they just ignore him, and what happens? He snaps. He basically breaks under the pressure and the duress. See, they couldn't break me. I'm not breakable like that. I don't just snap. I'm a martial artist, and I think, thank goodness I am, because I know where to channel my energy. But a lot of these people don't know how to do that, and they'll just plain snap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's what they count on, and we have a population that has been so disempowered to be told for years and years that they're helpless and hopeless, and you know, go back and sit in front of the TV.
Yeah, right. And that's just putting them in that alpha state anyways. I mean, you know, it's not like it's going to program them too hard, but I'll tell you what, if they get hit with a program like this, forget it. You know, it's all over. So yeah, it's just an insidious thing. The more I know about it, the more disturbing it becomes, because I see that it's been going on for a very long time. And like I said, how many years have I been integrated into the program? You know, 10 years I've been integrated with an artificial intelligence program. And it's not me, obviously, but, you know, it's still there. So what happens, you know, where does the soul reside in this space, in between the spaces of me and the program? That's the question I had in my book, I the Remote. So that's the biggest thing also. It's a violation of one's spiritual evolution and design.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing then that we have so many different layers of being. So
Oh, it is. But, as Robert Duncan discussed in his book, Project Soulcatcher, I mean, the whole concept is to trap the brainwave patterns, create brain templates, and use those for cloning, and also probably take some kind of an imprint of the soul signature, even though they can't clone the soul. But I'm sure they'll try through their crazy science to try to, simulate something.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's it, because they are in control, and we are looking at the big push that's on with so many different television programs about transhumanism, the melding of the body with the machine,
Right.
and movies out there about it. So,
Transcendence?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? They didn't talk to me first, Robin. Why don't they talk to somebody who's been interfaced with the technology, and then it won't be such a pretty little scene. That's what cracks me up. They put all this, they glorify it out in Hollywood like it's, oh, look how cool it's going to be. Look, you can learn all this and so fast. Look how fast you can graduate. Well, what's the point in learning quickly if it's the wrong information to begin with, right?
Oh, yeah. And leaving yourselves vulnerable. That's what they forget.
Yeah, basically, if you want to be an android and not have a soul or a spirit or your own personality, hey, knock yourselves out.
Wow. Yes.
I mean, that's what it's going to be. I mean, I'm very adamant. I have a very dominant personality, so it's like I'm the alpha in my body. Thank goodness.
That's a good thing. I'm in mine as well. So, yes, there are those of us that just will push to do what we have to do.
Exactly.
So, it's just, but there are so many that get swept up in all of this craziness and get totally demoralized. So for them, we have to make it better. So can you share with us some of the things that were discussed, some of the things that you feel will make a difference for our audience to become more empowered?
Well, the things that we discussed, I think the most critical things were describing the technology itself, which I talked about a little bit, about how they do the EEG cloning, and that's turning a target into a robot. And a human robot, and then of course they use that to interrogate, spy, kill, disable a target, or they can actually boot up the target, so it doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing. And most of the time these coverts are collecting data, like I said, to make this weapon systems better. So each person, when I look at the NSA and the profiling they're doing right now, and the recruitment of data, data mining, it tells me that they're using that data because they want to eventually use it for a psychotronic program. Now, I don't think they want to use it because they're interested in your bank accounts or what you do from day to day or who your family members are. I think it's more about knowing everything they can about you so they can use it as a weapon against you. And I'm talking psychotronics, by the way. I'm not talking just plain blackmail. Psychotronics is way worse than that.
Okay, so can you define psychotronics for the audience?
Sure, it's a form of mind control deployed, just like what I'm talking about here, that's usually done remotely by satellite, which can destroy your brain. I mean, literally attack the mind from the outside to the in, and then start running the communication system where they'll start doing a replay or a loop of your activities or your dialogue or your interface with someone else. Like say you've had a conversation during the day with someone, they'll reroute that and they'll play that back over in your head 24 hours a day just to piss you off or to drive you crazy. I mean, this isn't your madness. This is them creating a madness in you. So that's just an example. So keep that in mind as well. The funny thing is, Robin, I'm a better profile than half their intelligence agents.
Oh, I'm
sure
you are.
I don't work for them. But I mean, I'm sure all of them are just plain compromised as all hell. And I look at all this and I think to myself how easy it is for me to decode all this technology and see what they're doing ahead of time in the illusion. But I think the reason I can do that is because I've always been very good psychically before I was tagged. So now I can see things ahead of time even easier. But yeah, that's one of the things. Another thing we discussed, of course, was the military abductions. And we discussed some other things pertaining to targeted individuals and suffering and working on solutions to that, of course, which a lot of people are having a hard time with. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who were there and as, I guess they were presenters to talk about their experiences. And my goodness, some of them are a real mess. Oh, gosh, I felt so bad for them. It's really bad.
Huh. Well, I just know the things that have been described to me, what friends have been suffering with. It's just mind-blowing to move things in the throat of a person, in the vagina and other body parts to create pain and heat up the body. I mean, just for what reason other than, they do it because they can.
And they're sadistic, and also it's a sexual too, because they also, we did talk about cults and Satanism and sexual abuse. And of course, that's not my area, but there were a few people that are talking about that. Now, also keep in mind with this technology, it doesn't necessarily mean Satanism at all. Actually, there are a lot of religious fanatics out there who would love to get their hands on this technology to brainwash people and convert them into their religion. So this is another weapon of mind control, and any religion in the world would be chomping at the bit to have this, so they can sit there and brainwash somebody into their program. And of course, corporations are religions too. Anything can become a religion at this point. Anytime you believe in something, it's a religion, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, and of course they want to blame it on, it's all Satanism. I'm not saying it's not or it is, but I see, and I've done enough research to know there are other religious people involved in these programs and deployment of this technology.
Yeah, that's it. There's so many agendas. It really, every time I encounter so many of these bizarre events, they all give new meaning to the statement. The lie is different at every level.
It really is. Yeah, it's all a deception game. And what you realize, Robin, is that everybody's being programmed to some degree. And I don't have this with paranoia, and I don't say it with paranoia, but isn't it obvious? Hear what they say and watch what they do from day to day. Look at people, see how they function, see how they act. I mean, look into the eye of your fellow man sometime, or the eyes into of your fellow man, and tell me what you see. Is there a soul? Is there a heart? Is there anything there? A lot of the time, I don't see it. I did find some really nice people I encountered out there at the summit, and it was actually really nice to reconnect with some of the people I had seen last year. We had Kevin Annette, who was doing a Skype interview. He's fabulous, by the way.
Yes.
And he talked a lot about the church and the Pope, and boy, he had a lot to say. And he's incredible. If you can ever get him on your show, Robin, try to get him on. He's wonderful.
I will. I've gotten updates from him for years, and I'm so excited to see he's finally gaining traction and finally getting hearings. To be held in the EU to address these overwhelming cases of abuse.
Oh yeah, it's insidious. And I mean, honestly, there's so much to know. I didn't know half of the stuff when I was over there. I was like, I couldn't believe how much abuse is going on with children and sacrificing. And I was like, are you kidding me? Because I've been so focused on the artificial intelligence. Yeah. But once you start looking at all of it, it's disgusting. Oh my goodness, it's sickening. And it's like an epidemic across the world, and you wonder why there's such evil festering everywhere, why these people are so twisted. But then you look at the source of why they're twisted, and I guarantee you they're compromised with some form of mind control, which is pushing them into that activity to begin with.
Wow, most definitely. Yeah. It's just the same thing that we find with so many other areas of information that the mainstream media doesn't cover. If people start talking about these things, their families, their coworkers will make fun of them. Yeah. And yet it is painfully real, and even more so when it happens to one of them.
Oh, absolutely. I worked in surveillance, and there was a guy that we saw through the camera who was talking to himself, and one smart aleck surveillance officer said, "Oh, they must be psychotic." And I looked over at them. I said, "No, maybe they're hit with a psychotronic program." I got really pissed off. And you know what? There's a lot of ignorance in people who work in surveillance and security, by the way. I'm not bashing everybody, but I'll tell you what, I've worked in those areas enough to know there are a lot of little smart alecks there who don't deserve their positions. And they need to educate themselves and have a little more compassion and understanding. And once they understand it, they need to do something about it, because you can't just have the knowledge. You have to take that knowledge and run with it. And what we're heading for a break here. So
yes, let's get back to it so they don't miss what you're saying about what they have to do with that knowledge when they have it. Right. Stay with us, people, for more with Solaris BlueRaven. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, my friends, we are back. The time is flying by, just as expected. I know how fast it goes with Solaris. There's so much information, so much to cover, and it is just such a wonderful service that you do to present all of this, Solaris. It's greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Robin. I appreciate it.
Oh, my gosh. I've been looking forward to this. Remember, I did say I'd love to get an update from you after the event.
Right.
So, yeah. No, I wanted to hear more about it. And it has to get mainstream so more and more people can be helped, because with all their secrecy, that's how they get away with so much of this. When we were going to break, you were talking about how, they need, having who has the knowledge and how they're able to run with it. And I think of what I've observed with police at so many of the occupied locations that I went to, and the videos that I've seen of when they were brutalizing people. But it's incredible how they attack the peaceful people who are just, in open space and staying in a park, and they don't want them there, and they are in full riot attack, gear. They're using military equipment. And if you observe them, which is what makes it truly bizarre, they act as one, like a true hive mind.
Right. Yeah, and we do have the I shouldn't say we, EEG cyber hive mind. Yes, they have one, and yes, they deploy it. And chances are those guys are probably indoctrinated. Now they won't even notice. They probably wouldn't even notice with something like that. But they do have those, and they do deploy them. And chances are, I suspect the police of the day are being indoctrinated into a new design. I truly do believe that. The old-fashioned policemen that we used to have when we were growing up, or I don't think they're kind of extinct. They're like old dinosaurs. I think they exist somewhere, but these new guys are not good. They don't have any heart. They just don't care. They're desensitized. They don't have any compassion or empathy. And it's a dangerous place to be when you're like that. You don't care. Therefore, you don't care if somebody drops dead in front of you, and you'll help create it at some point. I mean, we have to keep our hearts. We have to keep our compassion as all people, and we can't let this get out of control. I mean, I could become a monster. I could have easily become a monster. I chose not to. Simple as that.
Well, and not everybody has the strength or even the awareness to be able to identify what's happening to them.
Right. And I think, you're right. And I think a lot of it has to do with your spiritual path, because if you're spiritually enlightened to begin with, you already know the right course. So you can't be compromised or derailed. And I was going to tell you also, it's kind of like cross-bridging with me. What happened when I was ascending with the technology is my brain kind of rerouted a cross-bridging. And don't ask me how it happened, but that's what happened with me in my personal experience. So I'm able to navigate at a higher level opposed to what they've done. So I don't know if I really clarified that much when we were talking about it in the past, but that's kind of what happened.
Well, sure. I mean, this is all such new terrain. The more description and definition that you provide, the better.
Well, I try to. Yeah.
Yeah, and you do such a great job communicating what goes on. It just, for the first time listeners, it's so big. It's hard for them, to wrap their mind around.
Right. And I would say that for people who are confused about the technology, go after the technology first, like I did. Just look at the technology. Don't look at the side effects and this and that. Just read the book. Robert Duncan, I always promote him all the time, Project Soul Catcher Volume 2. And of course, he has a new one out called How to Tame Your Demon or something like that, which is literally about how to deal with the tactical assault program, although it doesn't tell you how to disable it. And I've heard a lot of people say, if you have RFID chips, they can be fried out by some form of an EMP blast, and I'm not going to suggest that or recommend it at all, but I have heard several doctors say that. Yes. If you're being interfaced with the technology, you can cause a lot of problems like stopping your heart and everything else. I wouldn't recommend it, quite honestly. Yeah, and a lot of people don't have the chips anymore, by the way.
Oh, so this is just a direct locking in on your individual signal now?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. It's electrical. It's just like anything else. It'll hijack your electrical field too. So you don't need chips. That's what's this thing is so advanced. I mean, it's literally feeding off of your neural activity of the brain. It's created two hemispheres. Well, not two hemispheres. You already have two hemispheres. It's created a separate brain. So go ahead.
I was just, I'm going to be humorous, but there's a degree of seriousness in what I'm saying. I love wearing hats. Should I be lining my hats with tinfoil?
You know what? I always say, you remember in the old days, we used to get a better signal with so I don't think that's going to do anything. And I've had, when I first went after the parties involved in my induction, my lawyer used to tell me, do you think we should wear some aluminum? And I was like, no, I don't think so. But it doesn't work. I've tried everything. And, some people say the Faraday cages work, and that never worked with me either. So I think it's dependent on the type of program they deploy on the target, personally.
Yeah, and of course, if there's, something that's going to block it by now, it's been in use for so long, they have to know how to bypass those.
Right. But I will tell you, Robin, they do know how to shut it off instantaneously. They can switch it off immediately. That's what pisses me off the most, is that these guys could shut off the torture any time. And they don't. And people are suffering every single day. People sit there and they debate, who are under these assault programs, whether they want to live or die each day, because some jerk with a little joystick or in a control room somewhere has decided their fate by deployment of this tactical hardware. It's inexcusable, and it's a war crime.
It is. It most definitely is, amongst the many that are out there. Mm-hmm. And boy, I just applaud you and all the others for putting the conferences together. Is this the third one that's taken place?
Yeah, it was the third one, and I thank Lori and Fenton for that, because she put this one together as well. She does it every year, and each year we get hassled about it. Oh, why are you doing that? Well, guess what? We're doing it because this is a technological assault weapon, and we need to expose it. That's why.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to know. This isn't a game and it isn't a joke. And sometimes you get, targeted individuals who sound a little scattered because they are scattered. They're being screwed with. So, if you're listening to them and they're talking about their experiences and they're sounding panicked, well, they are being panicked. They're being tortured every day. So that's how they're going to come out. It doesn't sound good. Now, I know how to anchor technology. And with me, I wasn't a targeted individual like they were. I was more of a test pilot. I mean, they ran me through programs that my handler went through. I'm better than him, though. I'm not a jerk. So, but literally, I mean, I'm like, I knew I could write out that technology. I knew I could. Was it appropriate? No, not at all.
Yeah. Well, it's these challenges. It's just, I don't have the words for it. It comes down to waking more people up and really getting them familiar with it, because you just think of how many are ridiculed, as I say all the time, by their friends or families from believing things outside of the mainstream media, for choosing a different lifestyle.
Right. Well, you know what, Robin? I really wish this summit was televised across the world. It would have changed everything overnight. I really believe that. It's unfortunate we had a small room with. I mean, it was great. Don't get me wrong. We had a good crowd in there. But the bottom line is, this is something that should have been on mainstream. It should have been around the world broadcast, so everybody knows. And people who are suffering and thinking they're crazy, who literally are legitimately being harassed, will know that they're not. I mean, that's what we need. We need the exposure. And unfortunately, we've got mainstream, what I'd like to call, I don't know if I can say the word ass clown. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But literally, that's all they are, sitting there painted up, on screen to be the jerks they are, mimicking data that has no validity whatsoever. In the meantime, people are suffering, and there are serious issues that need to be addressed across the board in this country. And we're in a serious wave of bad stuff happening here on this world, and it really needs to be addressed.
Most definitely. For what we're facing with our military that is returning, so many fronts that things are perverted.
Oh, yeah, everything's a distortion. And the sad thing is, there's no remorse with these people. I mean, they don't care that they've tortured people. They don't care that they're doing this every day. To them, it's just business as usual. And that's the thing. We expect them to care, and that was our first error. I don't want to say error, but literally, they don't care. So we have to annihilate that part. Okay, so they don't care. So therefore, we still go ahead with it anyway, and we address it anyway. And like I said before, knowledge is power. So you take this knowledge, you take this information, you learn it as best you can, and like a skill, and you run with it. And then you be a voice for those who cannot speak, because there are many people who are afraid to come forward, and there are many people who are being bullied into shutting up. So we're like me. They can't bully me. I mean, it's like make my day, boys and girls, because it's gonna happen. I don't have any attachment to life, so I don't have to worry about anything. I just I'm here. So a lot of people don't have that, But I did have a family. They took that away, so I don't have anyone, now. So it's nothing I have to worry about. So, but a lot of people don't. I mean, they have family, they have children, but at the same time, what kind of children are you going to bring into this world? If you don't get a grip on this technology now, and even if you go into the transhumanism, what the hell kind of child is that going to be? What's it going to be, a kid that can't think for himself because he's programmed by some mad scientist? Are you kidding? You don't want your kid to be able to think and learn and grow and evolve in alignment with the universal energies. Instead, he's going to be some kind of a programmed droid.
We already have that with the kids with this fictitious diagnosis of ADD, ADHD, and they're put on Adderall and Ritalin, and you find 6-year-olds hanging themselves in closets, and they grow up in a world where they are on drugs and they never know what it's like to experience their own body and mind.
Yeah, exactly. They're completely desensitized and programmed. Yeah, they're already being calibrated for the agenda, and I hate to say it, but a lot of kids are really psyched to be a participant with transhumanism. I mean, they're really all into it. The 20-year-old guys, give me a joystick and let me play. Yeah, I mean, they don't care. It's a video game to them, and then people become a video game. That's even more disgusting.
Isn't it interesting? The prophecy of the Matrix, right?
Yeah, it truly is. And you know what? Without spiritual evolution, to me, it's just, this is like the most linear lie of weirdness I've ever seen. But it's truly happening. So, and one thing they were talking about too at this summit, Dr. Robert Duncan was talking about a video game they're now using where you can feel the pain as you're playing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good thing that they feel the pain, although it'll make them all into masochistic nut jobs.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I don't think it's going to benefit. But it's just really weird. I mean, anything that's strange and dysfunctional they'll use, and yeah, it's no good.
Wow. So, yeah, I didn't hear about that one.
Yeah, that was one they mentioned over at the summit. And I was trying to take notes because I'm sitting there, to me it's a class when Robert Duncan starts talking. or Dr. Hall. I mean, I treat it like a class, because I'm doing checks on my own work, and it parallels 100%. So yeah, it's real interesting. And then of course he knows too. He looks at me and knows, and he almost feels bad. He always says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, I have a love-hate relationship with Dr. Duncan because he's part of the problem, and but he's trying to be a solution now, right? So
well,
I mean, he created some of that technology that they deployed against me. Let's put it that way.
Well, but oh my God, Solaris! I mean, I just think the powerful, the powerful acknowledgement to be vindicated that it's real, that this is what was done to you.
That's what's huge, and that's what people need to get through their heads in a nice way. People who have been targeted, or people who have been test pilots, or any type of induction they've gone through, they need to understand this is a technological interface, and that they really need to look at that first and know that there's nothing wrong with them. And unfortunately, even though it simulates, some of this technology can simulate schizophrenia, they are not schizophrenic. And the brain does know how to self-organize, by the way. And even if it's under duress of this technology, it knows how to override. That much I do know, unless you're very, very weak.
Yeah, and what are we looking at with this medicated society and this disease-ridden society?
And that's another thing, Robin, I was going to say, not to cut you off, but no, with this type of symptom, these guys will go to a shrink, which is the worst thing you can possibly do, because they're not going to understand it. Well, do you think the shrink is really going to say, oh, it's a technological thing? Really? I doubt that. And of course, they're going to immediately put them on some kind of a crazy drug, which is going to make them act worse. And it won't stop the communication. It won't stop the technology. It will only take the edge off, just like a beer or a joint or something. It's not going to do anything.
Oh, it disconnects them emotionally, or else that disconnecting ability allows for increased rage, increased suicidal thoughts, all of these acting out mechanisms that would have been subdued by a mind that was imbalanced. But once on the drugs, boom, that's what it is. And people don't know. Therapy does not exist. I was talking about this in the first hour. It's desperately needed, because how else do you work through your problems, learn how to be resilient when something happens? You build up the experience and the ability to be able to handle these things, but they're not allowed that. Nobody is, from the children to the adults to our military. They're just put on these drugs, and that is exasperating. So psychiatrists, the whole field of psychiatry is something that has been exposed, and I have to give credit to the Scientologists for doing an outstanding job about it. But you have a field where there's no way to even measure and determine what they're doing.
Oh, I know. It just really reminds me of Nazi Germany. I hate to say it, but it does. I mean, their whole behavioral pattern is defective. And then I think to myself, you're trying to assess somebody, and you people don't even understand your own backgrounds and what you're doing. And then, of course, it's all about cause and effect, Robin, as we know. There's always a cause for the symptom, right? I mean, and a lot of the time you have to look at what's causing that behavior.
Sure.
What is causing it? And now we understand that the cause is the technological interface. Wow. Okay? And that's huge. That is huge.
Yes, it definitely is, because these appointments that last with a psychiatrist for 5 minutes, and of course they bill their same big fee, they're just writing a prescription, because it's much more effective for the insurance companies not to have to pay for therapy. And this is where an involved population has got to make those demands.
I agree. You have to ask yourself, at what point did we get to this? I mean, when did it start that it got so weird like this? And I don't know, because, I'm a kid of the 60s, but I look and I'm like, when did all this weird crap start? How long has this been going on?
Well, look at the experimentation that was done by the CIA with LSD back in the 50s and 60s on their own military. And the agenda that was put forth that so many have no idea about. I mean, just amazing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for enhancing the brain and expanding consciousness the right way, with education and higher self over soul and spirituality. But this type of thing that they're doing is just experimentation. And the one thing that I did ask some of these guys who invented some of this technology, have you been a test pilot yourself? And all of them said no. And that tells me a lot.
Yeah,
it tells me a lot. Because had they been test pilots, Robin, they would not have gone with it.
Wow.
They would be dead, all of them.
And, I often wonder about the seductiveness of the ability to experiment and how they suck them in, and where does the line get drawn, because they're going for the knowledge, and there are a lot of people that feel that is of the most import, to get the knowledge, and they forget about the lives that are destroyed in the process.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like experimenting on animals for makeup or something. I mean, they don't care. They're trying to make a better product, and that's what they were doing. They were trying to make a better product. They don't care. I was a good candidate for the test program. That's all. I mean, they ran me through the battery of tests that Michael went through, my handler at the time, and it was the same stuff he went through. I asked him how he dealt with the stuff, and he said, I take Xanax. He couldn't, I mean, he told me the truth. I mean, the funny thing is, I mean, he lied under oath, but we all know he's guilty. And I mean, he'll never tell the truth. He'll die first. But, that's the thing. These guys, the bottom line is that they self-medicate, or only way for them to deal with what they're going through is usually through drugs or alcohol, some kind of an escape. They drink their lives away to escape what they've been or where they've been. And unfortunately, that's not the answer to the equation, obviously, Wow. But I see a lot of them doing that. A lot of these doctors and a lot of these people, they just escape through alcohol. Well, they don't want to look at it because it's too painful.
Well, sure. Medical doctors have the highest rates of alcoholism, suicide. I forgot which. I think psychiatrists might be the ones with the highest rate of suicide.
Yeah,
and
I believe that.
It's understandable, especially now what they're doing is criminal.
Oh, it is criminal. But you know what? Everything's criminal. I mean, we've got, like I said before, we have lawlessness coming out of these laws that shouldn't be laws. I mean, now it's illegal to be homeless. They're fining people $10,000 because they're homeless. Are you kidding me? I saw this. I don't forget what state.
I missed that. Wow.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to send it to you. I saw it on Facebook. I'm like, are you kidding me? Basically, they don't have any money. If they had money, they wouldn't be on the street, but you're going to fine them $10,000? Are you serious? I mean, this is the kind of crap I'm talking about.
They need to go to Utah because the state of Utah is providing homes for people who are homeless because they know it'll pay off, because if they have a place, then they can get to work and be back in the system.
Yeah, it's really sick. The more I look at it, the more I want to live on Mars or the moon. I swear to God, I want off this planet.
It's just, I feel like an emotional yo-yo sometimes looking at headlines on Facebook, going through the news, and the abuses of other conscious beings and of humans. I mean, it's just the regard for life is not there. So are there more and more of these programs being used on our military?
From what I understand, there are, and I'm sure they're using them quite a bit in the Black Space program, but they're using them at the highest level, which means that they're not being tortured like regular civilians would be. They're being used to be enhanced as spy birds and with the synthetic telepathy and, of course, remote viewing and things like that, where I've said this before, it makes the ultimate astronaut. I mean, it makes a badass warrior. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're a spy, and wherever you go, you're acquiring data, and nobody's going to know the better. So, yeah, I can see why they use it. Totally. Secret Service you have certain levels of Secret Service that already have access to something like this with the synthetic telepathy. But, who wouldn't want to use it for that? I get that. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with torturing people from day to day with this type of technology. That's where the problem stems, and people committing suicide over it.
Oh, yeah, it's a big deal when somebody signs up for it. That's the difference.
If they want to knock on your door and ask you, would you like to do this? We're recruiting you. Here's this. We'll pay you this much money. You can do this, and this is what you can expect. That would be all right, right?
Sure.
Well, not necessarily all right unless you sign off on it. But just to take people, I mean, come on, that's wrong. And then to deny it is even worse. And then, of course, like I've said before, I know many people who don't make it through these programs. If you make it through the first 2 to 3 years, then usually you can ride the rest of it out. Most of the time they don't, and they'll commit suicide, and it just gets shoved under the carpet. These suicides, most of the time the parents won't understand. They'll think the kid is schizophrenic or the person, the target, and they'll say, oh, he's crazy, he's lost it, he's bipolar, he's this, he's that, when in fact he's being targeted and psychotronically harassed, which is really sad.
And that is the biggest crime, I think, the rejection from those around you,
right?
And the stigmatization that people are given intentionally, so the truth doesn't come out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it has to stop. I mean, this denial has to stop. I can't stand that type of denial. And this country's notorious for turning, a deaf ear to the truth. And I don't know where it started, as I said before, but it needs to stop now. And these people that are in the White House and these people that are in government need to really just either stand down or take a good look and stop this crazy BS that's happening, because it's inexcusable. I mean, our finances and our economy is nothing compared to what's happening here right now with this type of deployment. You know how many people are out of work because they're being psychotronically harassed and they can't function from day to day?
I have no idea.
They can't hold down a job. Well, I mean, quite a percentage, a huge percentage, because they're not able to work. I mean, they just can't keep a job. They can't hold down a job, and sometimes they'll be targeted, and sometimes they'll be blacklisted. I'm almost blacklisted because I'm a kind of a whistleblower. So it's hard. I mean, obviously I'm an author, but authors don't get paid that much. But you know what I mean? It's kind of like you either go with the flow and be part of the illusion, or you stand up and be counted and say this is wrong. and it needs to change. And those of us who stand up and are being counted, well, I think that's where we need to be, even though it may feel uncomfortable.
Solaris, can you give us some of the markers that sort of tip their hand that they are programming people? Because I see so many common signatures in many of our elected officials. They're off a beat. Something's not right with how they communicate, how they hold themselves. What should we look for?
Well, a lot of the time, depending if they're hearing the communication system, it's usually going to, they'll be dictated to, which means that the communication will tell them what to do and what to say. So sometimes they're a little bit broken with their dialogue, like they're taking dictation. So, and other times you'll look at the hand signals. Sometimes there'll be some interesting hand signals that are associated with their handlers, which are cueing other people in the audience, things like that. So I can pretty much tell when somebody's being programmed, but a lot of people can't. But they already know because, well, I have the artificial intelligence stuff, so I can kind of scan a lot of different things also. But yeah, it's always like taking dictation. When I first started getting hit with the program, my live handler was always trying to talk for me, and I backed him up, and that's why I talk so fast now, because I was constantly being interfaced with live communication. So I had to fight my way out of that, and the only way I could do it was by being faster than him in verbiage, and I made it. And now I talk really fast, but it's like, hey, I'm getting the word out.
Hey, that's the bottom line.
He couldn't stand it. He even made it a point to say something like, I wish you'd listen or something like that, because I would just cut him off. But they were always trying to program me. I didn't like that.
Well, with good reason. My God.
I mean, what is that? It's crazy. But it's not good. And I'm sure that they're all being inducted. And I think I mentioned this back in 2008 when Obama went in. He attended, when he got whatever you want to call him. I guess he's a president now. Is that what they call him? But anyways, I sent him my book, I, the Remote
It's
Black
his label.
Yeah. I sent him my book, and I sent him a copy of my interview and everything. And I told him this is the kind of technology that's around. And
being used on you.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden it's like he's going fast forward with his brain research. And I'm like, yeah, nice, great. See where that got us, right?
Well, I have to say, I found so many remarkable things in observing, remarkable as to comment on George W. Bush, that just didn't add up. And I always wondered, was it an earpiece or was it a direct brain-to-brain communication?
He had the link, and so did Reagan. And also, he said he was talking to the voice of God. I'm sure you remember him saying that, maybe not. But yeah, he was in communication with the system, with it. And actually, the year I was inducted, I believe he was still around. So I was hit in 2004. But yeah, he was interfaced with the technology. It's the best security system you can have.
Well, and there were websites put up about all the misspeaking that was done by George W. Bush, and you could see it was like he was having conflicting information in his brain.
Yeah, he's being compromised as he's talking. Yeah, that's what they love to do. Yep, that's it.
I mean, I thought that was so apparent, and ultimately I felt sorry for him because it was just somebody who looked like they were kind of trapped.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Well, neurolinguistic programming will do that also. But when people are being interfaced, and you can probably catch it on earlier interviews when I was first coming out with exposing this. My handler used to try to override me all the time. So there would be times I'd try to start a sentence and they'd try to interrupt, and I would kind of get derailed for a second.
Wow. Well, we're going to break. We only have a half hour left. I better come up with something really important. They're all so important, but let's figure out what everybody's got to remember. So stay with us, people, for more with Solaris BlueRaven, and be sure to catch her show at Revolution Radio on Saturday night at the Witching Hour, Raven Star's Witching Hour, and she'll give you the times for her other show on Dark Matter. We'll be right back, people. And we are back. Oh my gosh, we only have a little bit less than a half hour left with Solaris BlueRaven. It is such a pleasure to have you with us, Solaris. One of the best things people can do to get informed is to read and educate themselves and watch videos. I know you have those available at your site. Could you give out that information again, please?
Yeah, I sure can. My DVD documentary is available on my website, Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives, I, the Remote, a Disclosure in Covert Technology. It's also on Amazon.com, and my books are all on Amazon.com, by the way. Programmed by Deception, I, the Remote Series 2, and then my I, the Remote, Black Operations and Areas Beyond 52 is also on there as well, and some other books that are not pertaining to covert technology.
Okay, well, that's good. So people know where they can go to get it, because that's often a challenge. So what do we want to finish with? What will make the biggest difference for our audience so that they can be alert to these issues and not so easily ridicule or discount, somebody else when they're talking about their experiences.
I think networking is the biggest thing they can do. And that means, getting on the internet, networking, physically networking with people, your neighbors, whoever. But I would start by educating yourselves. Obviously, read Dr. John Hall's book, Satellite Terrorism in America. If you haven't already, take a look at it. That's his personal story about what happened to him and his girlfriend in Texas, and well documented. He's a professional, and he's taking a lot of heat. Also, Dr. Robert Duncan, who has Project Soulcatcher Volume 2, which talks about the technology and all of the different types of programs they run in the military and also covert intelligence areas, which indicate and talk about a lot of the different types of symptoms you get and what they do and how they program you and the names of the programs. Now, what I went through with the EEG cloning and this and that's something that we discuss here at the summit. So I do know that Lorian Fenton is going to have some kind of a pay-per-view set up at some point with the expert presenters. So you'll be able to see and hear our presentations and from the summit if you didn't get to go, which I think is fabulous.
Outstanding. Yeah.
Yes. So go to supersoldiersummit.com or contact Lorian Fenton. She's on Facebook, and ask her when that's going to be available. I don't have the information yet. I know she's working on editing all those files. And once they're available, it will be the expert presenters only, I believe, because there's privacy issues with the people who are targeted individuals. We're honoring that. So we don't want to just expose all their personal stuff. So anyways, that's where that's at. So like I said, it's all about education. It's all about standing up and not being afraid once you have the information to express the truth, because people cannot get, they have to stand up and be counted. You can't just get coerced into not being able to communicate truth, because that's what's gotten us into trouble all these centuries.
Definitely. And, I'd like to make a comment about Facebook, which I try to share with others on Facebook. For licensed healthcare practitioners, we have to abide by HIPAA laws. Supposedly, they're in place to protect all of the patient's information and their histories. We know that they can be gotten around, but still we have to comply. And anything put on Facebook is owned by Facebook. So just as physicians have to direct their patients away from having any discussion there whatsoever because it's compromised, what you're discussing with people and their private information, they have to be careful about not posting it there, because then it becomes public.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. Yeah. Networking means just to get in touch with people who resonate the same way you do with the information. But yeah, be careful what you add onto Facebook or any place else for that matter, unless you really want it all over the place. But I do think that networking is a really good way to go insofar as getting the word out.
Oh, I agree, because then you have the emotional support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And people don't understand. I mean, I wish we could just get there and get one of the mainstream channels to pick it up without a bunch of songs and dances and circuses and really just respect the information. But, they're all bought and sold, so it's going to be a big challenge to get through that.
Well, you have to wonder about how many are controlled to start with. Remember those weird instances of different anchors suddenly speaking gibberish?
Right. That's neurolinguistic programming. For sure. Yeah, they were getting hit.
Yeah, and they tried to say, their medication, or they, weren't feeling well, anything to cover it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine trying to do a show there, and no matter what you say, their party line is going to come out?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the thing, and I don't understand why the White House hasn't gotten involved more about this with respect to the people that tested and targeted on. I really think it's a huge issue, and he's doing a disservice by not addressing this. All of them are. But, you're dealing with NSA and all these other cutesy little alphabet divisions and agencies, and they all know what's going on. Every single one of those divisions understands the technology. I guarantee it. Oh,
gosh, yeah. I mean, but the puppet doesn't have the power. He's got to follow orders. He's not initiating anything.
No.
Yeah. So it's...
Yeah. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It reminds me of who is really the puppet master? What are you dealing with? Some little 2 foot 2 foot high thing hanging behind a curtain somewhere, or what?
Well, and it gets. I keep repeating this statement, but our friend who shared at I mean, the lie is different at every level. The more you think about it and apply it to all of these situations, it's like, whoa, to appeal to somebody's ego. But we're giving you the inside story. But don't let them know. Just tell them it's their job or whatever.
Can you imagine, Robin, what would happen to our planet if we all used technology with wisdom, and that all of this negativity and all these abusive things they've been doing was turned around, and we never had that part of it happening? We only had the positives. It would be an incredible world.
Yeah, I agree with you. So what do? We have to network. We have to make sure people understand where they can get better informed, right, with videos and books. And are there organizations? I know Melanie Britchin talks about ICAT, and there was another one, but I'm sure there must be others.
Right, well, freedom from covert harassment comes to mind quite a bit for the targeted individuals. And also, I mean, attend these mind control summits when they're there. I would really strongly recommend people support this and contact Lorian also. She's a good avenue and resource for people who have been targeted individuals. So that's another thing. Lorian Fenton is a good catalyst for getting people in touch with each other. You know, she's good about doing that. So, you know, there are things you can do. And the biggest thing is education and standing up and being counted. And at some point, we've got to figure out an avenue to present this to DC, and I'm not sure how that's going to formulate, but they've done it before in the past and it didn't get very far. Well, we need to do it again.
Who do we present it to? You know, you have all these elected officials that are mind controlled to start with.
That's what I mean. It's kind of like it's talking to the, I don't know, it's like kicking a dead horse, isn't it? Well, you know, I always said if we had a real world and we had some men with real, you know what's, then our Black Space Program guys would come forward and we'd correct everything with respect and honor to this world and the people on it. And that's what I hold the vision for. But I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath. I keep pushing it, though, and I keep telling them, you guys, you know, this is not okay. Well, so
I know we the people do. The power we have is when we turn out in force, in millions, making calls, that 866-220-0044, that number to call elected officials. And, you know, if they're going to change the way they vote, you know, that's really, that would be a magical occurrence. But when enough of us barrage them and tell them, hey, we don't want this to happen, just like what really did happen with Syria in the fall when this president was giving an address and trying to sell the reason to bomb Syria so that they could deal with the problems that were caused by the bombing and abuses of the people, that this would be different. Oh my God. I mean, it just really connected in people's brains. And we had, for the first time I've seen, politicians saying, my constituents do not support going to war in any way.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting. I think there were several people quite a few that contacted the White House and were expressing how they were being targeted or whatever, and talking about the covert technology. And I believe that a lot of those people received letters saying, get psychiatric help.
No, sure.
Yeah, that's just so insulting. And now, that's just to give you an idea insofar as the kind of mentality we're dealing with. First of all, it's denial, or they're either very stupid or they're in denial. Which one is it? You know, do they have like one functioning brain cell, or are they just plain, you know?
I don't have an answer.
I don't have any patience for this because my life is not somebody's toy, and neither is anybody else's, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's what it boils down to. And I would like to see this technology permanently disabled. I don't think it's a health benefit to anybody or anything. And insofar as it being a weapon for war, yeah, they use it in wars and they use it for deployment. They've done it in Afghanistan. So, you know, to compromise their opponents. So, yeah, I mean, I can see why they use it, but who knows? I mean, how many satellites have been taken over by foreign investors used against civilians here? That's another thing.
Could you expand upon that?
Well, I mean, you're dealing with people shaking hands under the table. So they sell the technology. They sell the patents, not the patents, but they sell the technology in black market systems so that they'll be selling certain things. So somebody here in the United States could be targeted from someone outside the United States because they sold the communication patent, or not patent, why I say patent, but template to whoever in another country. So that can happen. So chances are they're not even being attacked by regular American government.
Gosh, and you just think of the pressure that is placed on the military, you know, how they all have to conform.
Well, they're conforming to nothing. What it is a black hole to nowhere. I mean, that's the problem. They're doing something and they're goose-stepping about it, and they're thinking it's all cool, and that they're doing this for what highest good. It's not for any good for anybody. It's a lose-lose scenario if they were to look at the bigger picture. And that's what I'm trying to point out to people is like, this is no good. This is no good. And in the hands of people like this, it's just a disaster. And then what about the children, too? You know, you have to look at these kids that are being targeted, because little children that get inducted into the cloning, the EEG cloning, they won't have a personality of their own. They'll be completely manipulated, sexually assaulted, programmed, just worse than any type of predator would do. And then, of course, you know, they grow up to be compromised, and of course, they'll have the schizophrenic behavioral patterns that would be emulating. But at the same time, it's all a program. It's not even the child's normal brain activity.
And what are the reports about when they start with these abuses of children with this technology? What ages do they begin?
I don't know offhand, but I suspect they could even do this induction type stuff in the womb.
Oh my God.
It's that bad. But you know how it is with the child. Even the fetus picks up on the vibration in the atmosphere of the mother. So if the mother's being targeted, the child's going to receive it also. But I'm sure they can do transmissions. Yeah, I'm sure of it. And I'm sure at least, 4 years old, I'd like to say around that age. But I'm sure it's earlier than that. Wow. I feel sorry for children that get hit with this program. And that's why I'm coming forward at least. I mean, I hope you guys just pay attention to this. And the next time you see somebody who displays symptoms that could be possible schizophrenic behavior, you might want to think twice.
Yeah, of course. You've got to question everything. And just as the signature's there with all of these military mass shootings, what's the common denominator? The use of these drugs, the SSRI drugs.
Absolutely. Yeah, they keep passing it off. And the thing is, the poor guys, I feel sorry for these people. They're so pressured. I mean, they're under such duress and they just break. I mean, that's the bottom line. The guy just broke. So, I mean, can you really blame these people? I don't know. Blame them. I understand what happened. They were used as almost like a robotic toy for someone who's handling them and pushing them into doing something. It's terrible.
Oh, it is. It is. And it just, when you think of the video games out there and when you know that there are those using people in their own live video games.
Right.
I mean, it is just infuriating. You really want to figure out how to turn the tables.
Right. Well, the thing is, there's always a back door, although you'll hear from a lot of people there's a firewall on their end and there isn't on ours. I know the door swings both ways with the technology. And that's the good side of it in the sense that those of us who are being like test pilots for this technology, with me anyway, there was a two-way street. It wasn't just one door. I could get back to him. So I don't know if that's for everybody, but that was an avenue for me. And that was one of the reasons he had to have a restraining order on me because I was getting in and they knew it. Yeah. So the thing is, I can't say everybody has that, but with me, I'm like, I can break right through their firewall. So
but wait a second. Excuse me for interrupting you, Solaris. He applied for a restraining order against you. That you could get in? How did he word that if this technology is not supposed to exist?
Well, he said I was, I forget how they said it. Oh, I sent him some emails that were harassing him. It was a harassment thing. And then that's how he got me under a restraining order. It was only 4 years, but yeah, just to basically break the connection because he and I were too interfaced.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, so that's for emails. You can't send him emails. It doesn't mean anything
that's what he used
else
against
can't
him.
happen.
You know what's so funny is the judge looked at the emails. He's like, well, I don't see anything wrong. The judge even agreed on that. And it was just so stupid. But you know what? They'll do and say anything to get their way. And of course they did. But it's quite interesting. But you can get through. I mean, the thing is, I think people have to realize that it's kind of like one of those things where you have to empower yourself enough to understand that your mind is more powerful than what they're deploying at you. And you can override that and actually get back in. And natural remote viewer and I'm a natural psychic, and I think that helped me break through their barriers.
Oh yeah.
How many people are like they're not wired like me normally? So.
Well, that makes you a natural target.
Yeah, absolutely.
People have to be really careful what they show of themselves, it seems, or their children.
Well, it's just a shame, because in the old days we all want to shine our best and help as much as we can on this world. I mean, I don't hide anything. I'm trying to be up there and help and do what I can on this world. So it's unfortunate that we kind of have to go into the shadows because we'll be ridiculed or targeted if we come out,
Oh yeah, most definitely, and experimented upon.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I never saw myself getting experimented on. I can't believe this happened to me in this timeline. We're on this timeline, and that's why I feel very bad. There were a few people that were at that summit that I just felt so bad for. I mean, you could see them just breaking up as they were trying to explain what was happening to them. It's very, very sad.
Yeah,
it's just horrible.
Yeah, I just know, with the people that I'm friendly with, and I hear from them, they can't get out of bed. They're under attack. The pain, through their whole body, and the perverted person at the other end who's causing them to suffer. Right.
And then, of course, the dialogue doesn't help either, because what they're doing is they're mapping your thoughts ahead of time, because most people are psychic anyway. So they'll map that, and then they'll start saying dialogue ahead of your movement. So they animate you. And the animation is very irritating. I mean, if they're just constantly animating everything you do, you could see how that would drive somebody up the wall.
Oh, you mean that's like those of us who speak before another person has a chance to do so?
Yeah, so literally everything's labeled for you, and it's just, you have to multitask. You have to learn how to multitask. It's like having two brains when you're dealing with this technology. And, it's really weird.
Yeah, I hear you. It made me stop and think, because sometimes you just finish sentences for other people or
well, that's natural. Yeah, that's a natural telepathic thing. Yeah. And we're naturally psychic anyway. I mean, I'm sure you've had the thing where somebody tries to call you, but you know ahead of time it's going to be them. a natural psychic connection.
Yeah, well, we're all connected. We're all
Right.
manifestations of the same consciousness.
Right.
So it's like such a big duh. And the thing that I really am so grateful to Facebook for putting out there, whoever came up with one of those pictures, a picture for the statement to catch your eye about the fact that here we're so busy looking for life on other planets, and we don't see the diversity that's around us, all these conscious beings.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We have everything we need right here,
Yep.
and we can navigate anywhere through consciousness. I mean, you don't even need a spaceship. We can actually, raise our vibratory rate to a point where we can phase shift and teleport like the Zen masters are able to do. And, that's no joke. I mean, literally the ascended masters were able to phase shift and bilocate. And so it reaches levels of higher consciousness. They know this, by the way, when they're doing this replication with their artificial intelligence. They can't map consciousness, but I'm sure they would love to.
Yeah.
Create their own demigod,
Who knows what they can map by now, or what false creation they can sell as being real.
All I can say is if you see something that looks like a holograph that you think is real, just pretend it's not. I'm guarantee you it's not.
So how does one discriminate?
Well, you use your psychic radar and your psychic vision. At least I do. And I can tell technological array systems versus true psychic vision. And of course, with spirits, I've seen spirits before, legitimate spirits before. And then, of course, their imagery is too engineered, first of all, and it moves too quick and it looks too digital. You'll be able to tell.
Yeah. Okay.
You know that thing they're doing? Michael Jackson has a concert he does. It's a hologram of him. It's a holographic design.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
You realize he's making more money now dead than he was alive?
I didn't see it. I don't watch those.
Well, I haven't seen it either, but I've heard it's exactly like him, and yet it's a hologram, right?
Oh.
So
I think it's, one of these perverted things where it's like, nah, see what we can do.
He's immortalized in the hologram, yeah. It's really weird. But the thing is, that's another moneymaker. Of course, that technology is the big money maker right now. I'll tell you right now. It's just
sure.
Anything with holograms and this whole technology with actually synthetic telepathy, it's going to be deployed. I guarantee it will be deployed to mainstream soon enough.
Well, but that's the way they make it mainstream, by putting it out there like, oh, isn't this wonderful, Michael Jackson, your favorite entertainers, and then they turn it around and use it on us.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's all fine until somebody gets really negative, evil, and then starts to assault you with it, and then it becomes a nasty thing. So, Of course, anything can be hijacked too. You've got hackers everywhere, and they can hack into anything. Mind hacking is really big, especially with these divisions.
Wow. Yeah. So much to think about, Solaris. Gosh.
Oh.
So we have to look for an announcement from Lorian Fenton or from you.
I'll keep you informed too. If I hear something from Lorian, I'll be happy to announce it.
Yeah, sure. Please, pop on and let the audience know. Mm-hmm. And we've got about 5 minutes left. I just want to make one announcement for tomorrow morning, because I have got a special event for Event Horizons with Brian Forster. And he'll be discussing the newest finds from his latest expedition to Egypt. And it's going to be very cool. So I wanted to make sure more people knew about that. But please, once again, give people the guidelines, give them the warning signs, give them some tools to put in their arsenal so they, are not helpless.
Right. Well, the tools are basically educate yourselves, pick up a copy of my books or Robert Duncan's book or Dr. Hall's book, look through the technology, understand the technology, and then also pay attention to warning signs. If you're dealing with high profile people, or if you have an environment where you're close to a military facility or something like similar, or even a police department, pay attention if you start experiencing anything that feels like a television's been left on. When you're sleeping at night and you hear a static, like transmission of some kind, usually it will sound like a radio's been left on or a television. And that's before they hit you with the array system where you're integrated in. I mean, that's just an exterior. It doesn't get integrated. But that's the first warning sign, feeling like something's watching you and monitoring you.
Oh my gosh, what happened to the
I don't know. Thank you so much, Robin. And thank you everyone for listening.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And guys, don't forget to catch Solaris Saturday night for Raven Star's Witching Hour, midnight Eastern time on Revolution Radio. And what day are you on for Dark Matter?
Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yay, we got it in. Look for hyperspace, guys, and you get more of Solaris. A big thanks to you. It has been a pleasure. I've learned so much, as I always do when you are on Solaris. So I thank you for all your important work. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, bright and early, Event Horizons. We're going to see the latest out of Egypt with Brian Forster.
All right.
Go out and make it better, guys. You got the tools to do it. Now use them.